Sustaining Us is made possible by Fireheart Pictures and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and thanks for joining us for Sustaining Us here on KLCS PBS. I'm David Nazar. More people are leaving the state of California than ever before, and they're fleeing to places like Arizona and Nevada, Texas and Florida, for example. Many California residents say they're searching for a new home, claiming living in California, well, it's just not sustainable anymore. California critics claim local and state lawmakers have valued things like climate change, global warming, dwindling fish species, and coastal erosion over things like solving the homeless problem, the crime crisis, excessive government regulations, the taxes in California, the gas prices, the cost of living, and, well, the difficulties of simply trying to own a profitable business. So should folks live in California or leave California? Sustaining California, that's where we begin our broadcast. The traffic, the gridlock, the homeless crisis, the crime, increasing taxes, the soaring gas prices, the soaring cost of living, municipality mismanagement, excessive regulations. This is California. However, so is this. Great weather, amazing beaches, unbelievable mountains, clean air, clean water, blue skies, environmentally friendly, Disneyland, movie capital of the world, iconic sports franchises, iconic cities, Surf City, USA, the Golden Gate Bridge. To live in California or to leave California? That's the question. A question being argued in the Golden State these days. And as thousands are fleeing California, this argument seems to be divided among what else? Party lines. Many progressives, liberals, Democrats, academia, environmentalists claim this mass exodus of sorts is nonsense, simply a political talking point. People are really not running away. And yet many conservatives, Republicans, business owners, mom and pop shop owners, and residents in this state insist Californians are leaving in droves, claiming people can't run fast enough to escape the hell that is California. This dispute even has journalists at odds. Take, for example, two of Southern California's leading columnists.
I often say California is a natural wonder and a man-made disaster.
There are plenty of opportunities in California. And if you want someone to change the world, you probably want them from California.
So just who are these two journalists with diametrically opposed opinions of California? Well, Rick Reif is the editor-at-large of the Orange County Business Journal. He's been with the publication over 30 years. This Pulitzer Prize winner is a household name in Orange County. Rick wrote one of the most famous business columns in California, the OC Insider. In fact, the column was such a success, Rick spun his OC Insider column into a news and public affairs program for PBS for over a decade, Inside OC. John Lansner is an award-winning business columnist for the Southern California News Group, which includes one of the most renowned and influential newspapers in California, the Orange County Register. John has been with the Register for well over 2 decades, writing about all things California and all the great things the Golden State has to offer. And John's Register popularity took him to the radio and TV airwaves as an occasional guest pundit on PBS and talk radio in SoCal.
I'm very concerned about the high taxes in California. State income tax, highest in the nation. Sales tax, highest in the nation. And you know, think about gasoline right now. Californians pay roughly 50 cents, a little more than 50 cents a gallon just for tax. And that's way more than almost any other state. One state, Pennsylvania, they're about a nickel ahead of us. But now I've read that Pennsylvania is actually thinking about rolling back or eliminating their gasoline tax. So we'll probably be first there too.
If you want to talk about taxes, basically taxes plus or minus are pretty level across the nation. I know you're going to go, John, you're crazy. No, I'm not. You go to Texas and go look at the property taxes. Double, triple what many Californians pay, including myself because of Prop 13. I'm paying property taxes based on 1990s values. If I bought a comparable home that was half the price in Texas, my property tax would go through the roof. Yes, there's no income tax. Tax is one of those things, it's different for everybody.
Rick Reef claims it's not just the taxes that are killing Californians.
California is losing, on average, 6 headquarters a month. We've lost Oracle, Tesla just announced a move, Hewlett-Packard. Usually they're moving to Texas. Disney is relocating 2,000 jobs from California to Florida. And the reason, almost any survey, any study that's taken shows that California ranks at or near the bottom in being business friendly. What's the big problem? High taxes, over-regulation. Those are the two main things that are driving companies out of California.
There is a lot of pro-consumer, pro-worker rules and regulations in California. And that may very well translate to be that we're anti-business. And you can say, well, isn't that forcing employers out? Well, I would say one thing, and it's particularly important in this era, where the employee has seemed to gather enough gumption to now have a big say in salaries and workplace conditions and whatever. Workers are really what makes, a healthy economy, and California protects them. I am sorry that bosses don't like that, and some bosses choose to go elsewhere.
And Lansner claims people fleeing California, well, that's just nonsense, a Republican talking point.
The share of movers compared to our immense population made us the state where it was least likely for anyone to leave. During that decade, I heard extreme calls about this exodus from California. When it comes to the population data from the census, nothing could be further from the truth.
California just lost a congressional seat in the last census. New York lost a congressional seat, California, Illinois. I kind of see a pattern there of states that are known to be business unfriendly. Who picked up seats? Florida gained a seat, Texas gained 2 seats.
Reef says the denial of the mass migration out of California is a Democrat talking point. And Reef points to the fact that people fleeing this state has even affected the political landscape.
In the last 10 years, California's had a net out-migration. That means more people moving out than moving in, of about 1.2 million. So that's 100,000 a year net migration out of California. And actually that pace is picking up. It's now approaching 300,000 people a year. So yeah, I think that's pretty good evidence that the state has a problem.
I am sure there's more than a few people in California on all political spectrums who'd say, we don't really need more people right now. When I often hear about the tons of people who don't like progressive California politics, I laugh. This is no surprise to these people, I hope. And two, we had a chance, those who don't like that politics, they had a big chance in recent months to express their views, and they got them on a very narrow way. They got to get enough signatures, which is a small slice of the state population, to qualify for a ballot recall. And then when it came time to vote, the state said, sorry.
To find out what some average folks living in the Golden State are saying about California pros and cons, we took our cameras to the street to get various opinions from all different Californians of all different backgrounds, all different walks of life.
I think a lot of people are leaving California because honestly the home prices are so crazy, especially people my age I just got married, my friends trying to buy our first home. It's pretty much impossible.
I enjoy this place for 3 reasons. Number one, because it's 365 days of the year is sun. We have a good time. Second, because of the people. People here are joyful, friend. It's very nice. And the third thing is because California, for me, is the state closest to heaven.
As a business owner, it's been really hard doing business in California. The pricing, the rules and regulations, the fees, the licensing, all that crap is making it hard for us to survive. We have two other places and we're thinking about shutting one of them because 14 members of my family last weekend, we were at the park and they all decided they're moving to Texas.
It's just way too expensive here. It's Democrat run. It's stupid, in my opinion. I see why anybody would leave. Can't beat the weather here, of course. That's why a lot of people do stay. I don't know. I mean, we've looked at places in Mexico, and I like Florida. I don't know if I can handle humidity, but definitely politics are a lot better, in my opinion.
The politics, it's too restrictive here now. We're actually in the process of leaving. We're selling our house and we're out, moving to Texas.
I don't think there's anything wrong with California. If you don't agree with the politics, you don't agree with the politics. And I'm not saying that I agree with all of the politics. But what I will say is I was born and raised here, and like, you'll have to kick me out.
And joining me now to discuss this further is a journalist, never at a loss for words. You just heard him in the field report. Rick Reef, editor-at-large of the Orange County Business Journal. And also joining us is John Lansner, an icon with the Orange County Register. Let's talk California and the environment. Rick, first to you.
Okay, sure. Yes, we've done a great job of cleaning up the air. Although I think unleaded gasoline is probably the single biggest thing there. We still have the dirtiest air overall in the nation, but that's something that can't be avoided given our geography, the industry. Everyone drives a car, so on and so forth. But on the question isn't. The question is at what cost? At what cost are we doing things that now increasingly appear to be diminishing returns? Okay, California has the highest gasoline prices, the highest electric rates. We've got rolling blackouts. We've got a water rationing. We've got this tens of billions being spent on a green bullet train that's going nowhere. And, so in the push for the environment, some of these things are really becoming counterproductive and destructive, and they most hurt poor people and working people, especially those folks who do so many of the jobs in LA, Orange County, and they're commuting from the Inland Empire, and the gas prices are just killing them.
John, your take.
Well, you have to be vigilant about the environment, the climate. It doesn't go away. The challenge is getting worse or getting steeper. And not everything that is tried to fix these problems is going to work. I mean, that's just the nature of being sort of, particularly in California, out on the edge. Certainly mistakes have been made. Certainly the cost is high. But I think, as Rick said, particularly let's just start about with Southern California. We live in this basin, which is probably not the logical place if you wanted to put a, industry in an economy. You would be, because the breeze off the Pacific keeps all the pollution inside our, legendary mountains. And those are not small hills. Those are world-class mountains. And the big challenge is, let's say we'll start with Southern California, is how to fix it. Northern California has its own problems, one of which is sort of a plus, which is the huge agricultural industry that we have in this state, which absorbs 80% of the water that we have. And talk about a tough debate, right? I mean, this is another example of tough questions that need to be solved with adults sitting in the room and saying, what's the right answer? I mean, me and I have a pretty water-friendly property these days. I ain't making a drop of difference in this water crisis we're undergoing now compared to the fact that now everyone drinks almond milk, so we need 5 million square miles of almond trees. These are great questions. These are really tough questions. And unfortunately, it gets often down to either, oh my gosh, this mistake was made. We've had this big fight over a pipeline that doesn't exist that would take, dirty Canadian crude oil and ship it out of the country. Why don't we have meaningful discussions about, what's the right level of taxation, what's the right level of subsidy, how can we incent the private sector, which is always an important part of these challenges, to do, dare I say, the right thing. And one of the real costs, and it's often tough to talk about health or wealth, is that if we don't fix these things, people will get sick and or die from some of these issues.
I think though, one of the issues, and I'm sure John and I will sooner or later get into this, is we basically have a one-party state. We have one party that happens to be the Democratic Party that controls everything. And I think with that, you develop a certain arrogance and an unwillingness to be flexible. And let's take the current gasoline crisis, because I want to get back to that, because that's having a huge impact on people. California we have the highest gas in the country. It's about $1.72 above the average. So we pay $1.72 more than the average state. Now, about 50 cents of that, a little over 50 cents of that is a tax, the second highest gas tax. And then the rest of it is because of the special formulation of fuel, again, to make our air as clean as possible. And also then other hidden taxes on the producers. So there's a wholesale tax that producers pay. And then of course, then that goes into the price of the gasoline. So look, we're $1.72 higher. It's a crisis right now. We've got a state budget that's got this, 50 billion or whatever surplus, in large measure because of Build Back Better, or not Build Back Better, but the stimulus bills and all that. And so California is supposedly rolling in dough. Why not say, let's eliminate the gas tax right now? Let's say, for now, for whatever, a year or whatever, let's eliminate it to give people a break. But they won't do it. Instead, they're doing this goofy rebate thing. And by the time the state gets done sending out the checks, who knows who's going to wind up with them. And it's strictly, again, a party that is so powerful, it can do what it wants and really doesn't even worry about public perception or the opposition or anything else.
Well, I think one reason there's one party in this state is that the critics I've been here 35 years, have said two things. One, the state's going bankrupt. We have so much money, it's laughable from both sides, for many issues. But and the second thing is that it's a sort of narrow-minded view that private sector is the answer to everything. And both of those, one is a prediction that has failed. The other one is not true. We all know that capitalism is a pretty damn good system, but it has its flaws, particularly when you get to big public policy issues that require some level of nudge or subsidy. So the reason there's only one party here is that the other party has failed.
Okay,
they have no candidate running, or at least serious candidate running for governor. If things were so bad and there were so many great ideas, I assume someone would raise their hand and say, hey, I want my voice heard, I will run. Okay. And that you can't put and so the latest thing, the last couple of years I've heard from this losing team is, basically it's all the umpire's fault, and I umpire girls lacrosse. It's not the umpire's fault. That team has failed and needs to come up with solutions instead of criticisms. And I have yet to hear significant, solid ideas of how to fix this, other than I've heard ideas like we should dam every river in California so basically we could save water, somewhat impractical, and or would have other ramifications. And two, when we talk about this, quote, worthless bullet train, the area between Bakersfield and Sacramento would be like, I don't know, the 25th largest state or something like that. And if the state of Iowa was building a bullet train between two of its employment hubs or whatever, we wouldn't laugh at it like we do here. Yes, I know things were promised differently. Things change and dynamics change. And the second important thing is we often sort of hear from our critics that we ignore the central part of the state, and that's where a lot of people are economically challenged in the state. Well, let's view this as a public works program that's keeping construction workers employed and whatever, and view it as that and move on. And bullet trains work. Mass transit works. The problem is we need to get all sides to discuss how we can best use these public dollars and public right-of-ways and all the power of government in the most efficient manner. And that may mean that some of this stuff doesn't work and should be stopped. But
John, if they built a bullet train in Iowa, they would do it for half the price
the land would be cheaper and the labor would be cheaper.
And, granted, you lay out a plausible argument for why that we have a one-party state. But the point is, we have a one-party state. So how's the one party fixing it? Republicans do have an idea on the high price of gasoline. They're saying do away with the gas tax. Okay, and California isn't. But let's talk another thing about when you have one party and you're committed to the environment. Okay, so how about nuclear energy? The Diablo Canyon plant is slated for closing. We already closed San Onofre. If they close Diablo is like it's 9% of all the power in the state of California. It's 15% of the clean power. Okay, and now I'm gratified to see that Governor Newsom has actually said he wants to reconsider closing Diablo Canyon. But I'm saying that and again, you'll have to maybe explain to me the mind of an environmentalist, that they can be against nuclear, they can be against desalination, but they love windmills and they love solar panels. All right. And this idea on Diablo, I mean, again, this is a case where the governor is going to have to defy his own party and the coastal, or he's begging the Coastal Commission not to close it. So, he's kind of up against his own, his own institutions here to try to save Diablo.
No, I'm like I said, I mean, the one-party system isn't perfect, and certainly is a detriment many times. The loyal opposition is often a worthy part of the system. Nuclear power is certainly something that was hot, and then we had some issues in some ugly situations, but those were 40 years ago. I will hope that technology in the nuclear world is much better, no different than every other bit of technology. And I also think that many of those things need to be rethought for various reasons. One, in the good old days, we were worried about the waste. Now with climate change being somewhat a real fear, we have to do that tough juggle of which is worse, finding a place to put the nuclear waste versus the positives that it can bring both to society and the climate. Those are great, great discussions. No different than, with the gas the problem with gasoline, and let's not assume or forget that crude oil prices have gone crude oil prices that were negative in the early days of the pandemic economy are now, back up near 80, 90, $100 a barrel. And that's a key factor too, is that either one, where are we going to drill? Great question, great debate. And more importantly, where are we going to put refineries? I mean, thankfully, the good people of Torrance in Southern California seem to have accepted all of them. But who else is going to have a refinery? And my one of my pet peeves about it of this debate always is think about Arizona, where they have a little bit cheaper gasoline, and every so often you have a friend on like Facebook will post a picture. Oh, I got this in Arizona. How many refineries are there in Arizona? Zero. How much oil production is there in Arizona? Zero. Why? They import it for either Texas or California. And maybe California and Texas should turn around to Arizona and say one way or another, maybe you should be paying some of these expenses for us to have two important things. One, the bad air. I don't think we are getting our full share, particularly the people of Torrance in the South Bay, of the cost of bad air. So people in Arizona can get cheaper gas. I mean, think about.
John, you make good points. You're making good points, and you're bringing up one of the right issues, which is what do we do about fossil fuels? But again, to get back to the obsession that California policymakers have. The issue now, we're probably going to see it on the ballot, is this push for single-use plastic. We've already banned the plastic bags. Now it's going to be single-use plastic, and we're going to see pictures of aquatic animals wrapped up in nets, and save the oceans, save the oceans. 80% of the plastic in the ocean comes from 10 rivers in Asia. 10 rivers in Asia, 80%. You know who isn't putting significant amounts of plastic in? California, the United States, Europe. They aren't doing it. And yet we're going to have in California this big campaign to ban single-use plastic, which drives up, again, cost to consumers, cost to business. It's crazy.
I laugh about all this, that this is always going to drive up the cost and end the world and whatever. And my favorite example was the $15 minimum wage, how businesses couldn't afford it. And it is sort of funny today that many businesses would love if we only had to pay $15 an hour. I would be a fool to say that every idea that's come out of Sacramento, is a good one. I would also say that Sacramento was not just, let's be honest, Sacramento was not just lawmakers. It's a lot of policy groups who are aligned with both sides of the aisle, or, there are for every business group that's going to oppose that, I assume that there is some maker of the alternative product who's quietly, look at this. Let's just say we need adults to get in the room and have sensible discussions about this. I hate paper straws. Okay. Can I go out there and say they are a very bad experience? I don't like drinking out of them. Okay. So I would personally rather have the solution that some companies have come up with, the fancy top that serves as a sipper, than a paper straw. So I will agree with you that paper straw is one of the worst ideas, just from a mouthfeel sense ever. And we have plenty of those, and we just need adults to get in the room outside of coming up with this whole list of crazy ideas that have come out of Sacramento that are going to end the California economy. Because I think we've proven that this, at least as of 2022, pretty resilient bunch of people who, when put huge hurdles in front of them, somehow work around.
Rick Reef and John Lansner, thanks for a great interview.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
For more information about our program, just click on klcs.org and then click Contact Us to send us your questions and comments or story ideas so we can hear from you. Or contact me directly at David Nazar News on Twitter, David Nazar News on Twitter. I'll be sure to get back with you. Be sure to catch our PBS program here on PBS, or catch us on the PBS app for all things sustainable. Thank you all so much for joining us for this edition of Sustaining Us here on KLCS PBS. I'm David Nazar.